House Report 112-454. For what printed in House Report 112-454. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Madam Chairwoman, I have an amendment at the desk. It's the Richardson Amendment number 10.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 10, printed in House Report number 112-454, offered by Mrs. Richardson of California.
Pursuant to House Resolution 631, the gentlewoman from California and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California.
I stand today in support of the Richardson Amendment to H.R. 3523, but I'd like to take a moment to thank the Majority Leader, Mr. Cantor, Chairman Rogers, and Ranking Member Ruppersberger for your tolerance in allowing us to come to the floor. I was ranking member of a committee that was in operation at this time, and thank you for allowing us to come forward. The Richardson Amendment ensures that owners and operators of critical infrastructure systems that are potential targets to cyber attacks receive information about cyber threats. Some examples of our critical infrastructure systems that this amendment would apply to are energy facilities, banking and finance facilities, chemical facilities, dams, nuclear plants, emergency services, agricultural and food systems, water treatment systems, many of these that would be in great danger and need information. Every single member of Congress has critical infrastructure sectors in their district, whether they be public or private, and every community in this nation has some critical infrastructure presence that should be protected and advised of threats. In my district, I have the Home Depot Athletic Center, which holds up to 27,000 people, the Boeing Corporation that manufactures the C-17 planes, the Long Beach Police and Fire Department EOC Center, the Long Beach Gas and Oil Department water treatment facilities. The numbers go on. But we need to make sure that not only ports and government facilities, but also private facilities are approved and entitled to have the same information. Some inherent complications are that there are 18 different federal government agencies that have jurisdiction over critical infrastructure sectors. For example, the Department of Homeland Security has jurisdiction over chemical, commercial facilities, dams, emergency services, and nuclear power alone. H.R. 3523, as currently drafted, does not mention how critical infrastructure sectors that do not fall within the jurisdiction of government intelligence agencies would receive critical cyber threat information or have the systems in place to share information appropriately. This amendment makes an important improvement to that legislation. I'd like to commend Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Ruppersberger, who mentioned in their testimony before the Rules Committee and the Intelligence Committee that there was a key fault here in this critical infrastructure section. I'm further pleased that the Rules Committee acknowledged that by finding this amendment in order and urge my colleagues to consider this seriously. While Chairman Lundgren's original cyber bill did not make it to the House floor, I offer this Richardson Amendment in the same bipartisan spirit that I did when his bill was brought forward in our subcommittee. Mr. Lundgren and Mr. Langevin spoke earlier on the bipartisan amendment regarding critical infrastructure, and that is hence me building my comments on that. The Richardson Amendment number 10 ensures that our critical infrastructure sectors will not be left out by receiving information that could protect their systems against a terrorist attack. This amendment makes sure that industries most at risk of a cyber attack receive information that they need to protect the public and the facilities at large. My amendment makes explicit that critical infrastructure sectors be included in information sharing relationships and does not include any new federal authorities. With that, Madam Chairwoman, I urge my colleagues to support this amendment number 10.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I appreciate the gentle lady's effort. Again, we were pretty careful in this year-long process of trying to find a very narrow solution because of all of the challenges that come with trying to get a piece of legislation across the House to the Senate to the President's desk. I argue that the Homeland Security Committee should engage in a critical infrastructure debate. Here's the problem. It's not defined for the purposes of this bill, so we don't know what that means. We've been very careful to separate the government from the private sector. There is no government involvement in the private sector networks. It's just information, malicious source code sharing. That's it. This, we're not sure where it goes. Many in industry believe that they're talking about the backbone of the Internet. Are they talking about the backbone of the Internet? We don't know. It's not well defined. That would mean then that the government, for the first time, gets into the backbone of the Internet. I think that's a horrible idea. A terrible idea. So I don't think that's what the gentlelady intends, but the problem is that's not what the language says. So I encourage the gentlelady, I look forward to working with her as she works through those issues on Homeland Security, because these are hard, they're tricky. Sometimes a word can get you in trouble, and as we have found along the path here. And as it should, we should be really careful about how we're doing this. So I'd encourage the gentlelady to work with us. We'll provide, I know Mr. Ruppersberger, since we've been through this, we can provide some help along the way, and we look forward to the product that you all work on that is geared toward the infrastructure piece. Again, this was never intended to solve all the problems. It was intended to be a very narrow first step to say, hey, if your house is being robbed, we want to tell you before the robber gets there. That's all this bill does. It tells if your computer is going to get hacked and your personal information stolen, we want you to have the malicious code so you can protect yourself. That's all this bill does. And so we think that we get a little nervous when it starts crossing that divide that we've established between the government and the private sector. We don't want, you start crossing that divide, we think you can get in some serious trouble in a hurry without very clearly defined language and definition. So I would encourage, unfortunately I'll have to oppose the amendment, but I look forward to working with the gentlelady in a very important issue, infrastructure protection, as the Homeland Security does its work. And I would reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentlewoman.
Yes, I claim time in opposition to the amendment, although I do not oppose the amendment.
Time in opposition has been claimed. Does the gentleman from Michigan yield time
Yield
to the
to me.
gentleman from Maryland?
I would yield such time as Mr. Ruppersberger would consume.
In opposition. Gentleman's recognized.
As we said before, our bill is extremely limited, and we're attempting again to allow our government, our intelligence community, to give the information that is necessary to protect our citizens from these cyber attacks. Ours is the most active bill that is out there now. Our bill hopefully will pass and go to the Senate, and there will be a lot more negotiation. But there's a lot of work to do in other areas too, such as Homeland Security, and I know there were some issues involved in the Homeland Security markup. I know that there are issues involving judiciary. And I can say this, I know that the chairman and I, for 1 year now, have worked very openly with every group that we think would be involved in this bill. And because of different positions taken, including ACLU and other positions, we listened, this bill was better, and we hope that it passes. So we clearly will work with you, but we on the Intelligence Committee are very limited to our jurisdiction. And that's why a lot of these issues we can't deal with other than what is in our bill right now. Now, Madam Chairman, I have one more speaker that's on his way for the bill. What? He's not coming? Okay, then I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlewoman from California.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Again, I'd like to thank both the chairman and the ranking member and look forward to the opportunity to work with you. I would just give you one analogy to consider as we move forward. As you recall in 9/11, when the planes hit those two twin towers, the government had the ability to notify the private airlines to scramble the planes and to demand that all of the planes would be landed because we didn't know where they were going to go. At that point, the government had the ability to work with the private sector, with the airline industry, to communicate information that they were now becoming aware of. I'm certainly not suggesting that we interfere with the free-flowing ideas of the Internet. What this amendment is suggesting, and I look forward to working with you in the future, is that the government does have the ability, if in the event something happens with dropping some chemicals into water, for example, treatment facilities, that the government should certainly have the ability to work with those private sector companies to be able to notify them and ensure that the public is protected. But I thank you for hearing the amendment, and I look forward to working with you going forward.
Gentlewoman, yield back the balance of her time. From Michigan.
Just thank the gentlelady, and I look forward to that opportunity, and yield back the remainder of my
Gentleman
time.
yields back. Gentleman yields back the balance
Yes.
of her time. Yes. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from California. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.